is about how repression creates depression. I love coaching people who are coming into their truth and owning that truth and really getting real about themselves and finding cool boundaries and healing from codependencies because repression, what do I mean when I say repression? Repressing your true self in any way creates depression. And the depression comes from, and I'm not talking about clinical crazy stuff. I'm talking about these feelings that we have of like being depressed and having like no boundaries in certain ways and feeling like we need to depend on certain people for certain things. So we become a pleaser and we start to become codependent, which creates a lot of depression as well. They go hand in hand. So what do I mean? Like, how do we not be repressed and depressed? So with my own story, it's pretty severe, but it happens a lot in different ways, a very similar sort of version of my story. My story of, being medicated from 7 years old to 17 years old because, you know, these labels we put on people a lot of the time of you're this and you're that and you're whatever because we don't really understand a different way of doing things and we need everyone to conform and do things one way. For me, I was doing things different than the norm, thank God, or I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today, but I was doing things different than the norm. I was learning differently. I was acting differently. I was extremely sensitive. And so to combat a lot of that, we medicate or we repress the true way of doing things, the real way that, in my opinion, my spiritual gifts were super repressed. And that created a depression for me, which finally broke me out of needing to fit into everybody else's idea of what I should be and instead being who I truly was. But this depression that a lot of people come into is because they've repressed their true way of doing things, their true self, their intuitive sort of think different outside the box truth. And so, and it's no one's fault, by the way. This is the way our, past generations knew how to do things. To make you fit in, have a good life, you needed to literally conform in ways that aren't true to you. And when you conform in ways that aren't true to you, you become depressed because you are repressed. So, how do we unrepress ourselves? We start reclaiming the parts of ourselves that we had to repress to survive. What happens is we repress. For me, it was dimming my light or not being as spiritual or as intuitive or as sensitive because that was creating, issues with people. That was creating confusion in people. That was making me outside the box, which was scary for some people. And so when you start doing that to yourself, you start having depression. For me, I stopped repressing myself, but that was a pattern of becoming uncodependent. I literally became dependent on other people's opinions, and I became dependent on survival from other people. I didn't know how to literally even survive on my own because I had repressed the part of myself that was my true self, that was my power, that was my way of doing stuff. So you have to depend on other people's way of doing stuff, and that is depressing. And so what we do is we start reclaiming by really understanding our boundaries, by really understanding, wow, I don't really have to dumb myself down or compromise my desires or my needs or my way of doing things just so that I can secure the support from that person or the support from this person, the emotional support, the financial support, whatever support. And instead, I'm going to turn it inward and discover my own support, discover my own voice again, discover my own light, my own truth, and own that. And it's a scary process sometimes, but what I see as I coach people into doing this more so that they can do it for themselves is I see this incredible awakening. And I see this rearrangement of external reality. What starts happening as we come into this reclaiming of truth and power and excitement is that we see that our outer environment is only ever reflecting to us our inner environment. So if we start feeling unsafe in our outer environment or chaotic, it's because internally we've become so unsafe and chaotic because we've never reclaimed our truth. So it's not your fault that you've abandoned it in the beginning because someone told you to repress it, or society was repressing it, or things were repressing it. But now you can stop doing that to yourself, and you can start reclaiming what's your boundary, what feels good for you. What do you want? How do you think? How do you want to look? How do you want to eat? How do you want to do these things? And the more we come into the freedom of who we truly are, the depression starts lifting. So, if you think that you're relating to this, check out my channel. Check out more of the videos, because it's all about this. It's all about reclaiming your truth. It's all about stepping into the reality that's you and being honest, maybe for the first time, and developing into me you see, intimacy with your own soul. Not the soul that everyone thought you should be, or not the self that everyone thinks you are, but the self that you truly came here to be, your true self. So I hope you guys have an amazing day. Namaste.